Okay, let's dive right into it. We're taking a deep look today at a stack of material you sent us, all centered around, well, one of the most widely reported and honestly pretty puzzling aerial events in modern history, the Phoenix Lights of 1997.
Oh, yeah. It's an incident that truly captivated a huge number of people. And, decades later, it still drives significant debate and research. It's fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. The core of the phenomenon, as your sources really highlight, is this. On the night of March 13th, 1997, thousands, and we mean thousands of residents across Arizona looked up,
Hmm.
and they saw this massive formation of lights moving silently across the night sky.
Right. Descriptions consistently pointed to like a V shape or maybe a triangular pattern, something huge just stretching across the horizon.
Yeah.
And the material you've provided for this deep dive is incredibly comprehensive. We've got witness accounts, we have analyses of photographic evidence, video evidence, official government and military responses, a breakdown of all the various theories trying to explain it, and even insights into the event's lasting impact and, recent developments.
So our mission in this deep dive, really looking at these sources, is to help you unpack all of this. We want to try and cut through some of the noise, understand what the really important takeaways are from this material,
Okay.
explore the different explanations that have been put forward, and really try to grasp why this event continues to puzzle and, frankly, fascinate us today.
Exactly. We'll navigate this complex subject together, pulling out the crucial bits of knowledge from your sources with hopefully both curiosity and a critical eye.
Great. Let's start with the event itself as it's detailed in your material. The sightings unfolded on March 13th, 1997,
Hmm.
uh, beginning around sunset up in northern Arizona,
Right.
and then progressing south towards Phoenix and Tucson as it got darker.
And what makes this event really stand out, I think, is the consistency of the witness descriptions. Across multiple locations, spanning over 300 miles, people widely reported seeing this large, silent formation of lights,
Yeah.
often in that distinct V or triangular shape.
Some witnesses described bright, solid objects making up the formation, while others saw more like clusters of smaller lights that seemed connected somehow.
Hmm.
And the reported movement was, well, slow mostly, sometimes appearing to just hover. But crucially, there were also accounts of sudden, almost impossible acceleration or the lights just vanishing.
Yeah, that's a key detail. And the lights themselves were described as varying in color. You hear white, amber, red, yellow mentioned, and sometimes they appeared to pulsate.
And the sheer scale, that's got to be key here, right?
Uh,
Thousands of independent witnesses seeing this from numerous vantage points, pretty much simultaneously. Your source is making clear that this scale is what pushed it beyond, easy dismissal.
Absolutely. You can't just write that off as an isolated sighting or, mass hysteria. It became something much harder to ignore.
Right.
The initial public reaction, and it was fueled by pretty extensive media coverage at the time, was this potent mix. Fascination, definitely, but also fear and skepticism, too. The event really quickly cemented its place in modern UFO lore.
And the initial official response, according to the material we have, was, well, cautious, maybe predictably so. Local authorities, military personnel, they initially suggested conventional explanations, aircraft, flares.
Sure. The usual suspects.
But the overwhelming number of witnesses and just the nature of their descriptions made that simple dismissal, as you noted, incredibly difficult to sustain.
Precisely. The sheer volume and the consistency of the reports from all these different places just demanded a more serious look eventually.
So let's dig into those reports then, for the people who actually saw it. The civilian accounts in your sources describe some truly baffling behaviors.
Yeah. Witnesses reported the lights hovering completely motionless, then darting across the sky at incredible speeds, executing maneuvers that, well, conventional aircraft simply cannot perform. We're talking sudden acceleration, sharp 90-degree turns, abrupt stops, even zigzags.
And that detail you mentioned earlier, the silence,
Ugh.
that comes up again and again in the accounts.
Yeah.
People really emphasized the complete lack of engine noise or sonic booms that you'd expect from anything large moving that fast, or even moving slowly if it was that big.
Exactly. Other common details include lights flickering or dimming or brightening, sometimes appearing almost to react as if they knew they were being observed.
Interesting.
Some reports even describe lights changing shape or intensity, and the timing, usually dusk or late night, and their appearance much brighter and seemingly closer than any star or planet that just added to the mystery.
What's particularly compelling, I think, in your sources are the accounts from trained observers, pilots, military personnel. Their perspective is unique because they are trained specifically to identify and report aerial phenomena.
That's where the professional analysis, or at least observation, comes in. Their reports carry significant weight precisely because they are skilled observers. They're familiar with the performance limits of known aircraft.
Right.
And they described objects moving at speeds and changing directions in ways that, frankly, challenge conventional explanations based on known aviation capabilities.
And their observations sometimes come with official documentation too, right? Like logs or maybe radio transcripts.
Yes, and sometimes even preliminary radar data, although that's often debated too. Your material highlights military reports near sensitive airspace or bases, which, regardless of the explanation, naturally raise national security concerns and would necessitate some kind of official investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. And the credibility of these accounts definitely gets enhanced when you have multiple lines of evidence, visual from trained eyes, maybe corroborated by radar, or other sensors like infrared readings, potentially. That's another layer, doesn't it?
It does. It moves it from just a single witness's potentially mistaken observation to something potentially confirmed by multiple data points, which is much stronger.
But I mean, human observation isn't perfect, is it? Even for trained professionals. When you have thousands of witnesses, like in Phoenix, you're bound to get some discrepancies in the testimony. Your sources discuss this kind of balance between consistency and difference.
Oh, for sure. Accounts will naturally differ due to a whole load of factors. Individual vantage points, where they're looking up from a brightly lit street or a dark desert, varying lighting conditions, inherent memory biases, the sheer difficulty of accurately describing something complex moving in 3 dimensions, or even just the stress of witnessing something so extraordinary. So inconsistencies don't automatically invalidate an account. They often just reflect the natural limitations of human perception.
So the key isn't really getting hung up on minor differences, like was it amber or yellow or the precise angle of the V. It's looking for those core consistencies across independent reports. Was there a bright light? Was it silent? Did it move in an unusual way? That kind of thing.
That's the crucial point, yeah. Cross-referencing observations helps establish the reliability of the core phenomena reported. If many independent witnesses report similar fundamental behaviors like a large, silent V-shape hovering or moving unusually, that strengthens the overall case significantly, even if they recall other details differently.
Okay, all right. So if that's what the human eye saw, let's look at what the cameras captured. Visual evidence, photographs, and videos seems absolutely essential here, you'd think.
It is, or potentially is. These recordings, captured by witnesses, some by media teams, they offer the potential for tangible, objective proof of what was in the sky.
But as your sources detail pretty clearly, actually capturing something like the Phoenix lights effectively is incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
Especially with the technology people had back in 1997.
Oh, definitely. Technical limitations were a major hurdle. Consumer cameras back then had much lower resolution, poor low-light sensitivity compared to what we have today. Things like slow shutter speeds, limited dynamic range, the camera's ability to capture detail in both bright lights and dark shadows, simultaneously reflections off the lens, or simple lens flare could easily result in grainy, blurry, or just distorted images.
And the environment itself can mess with what you see and record, too.
Absolutely. Weather like fog, clouds, or haze can obscure the view. Atmospheric phenomena, things like temperature inversions, where layers of air bend light and create mirages, or even rare events like ball lightning. Perhaps they can create visual effects that might mimic unusual shapes or movements. Optical illusions are a real factor to consider.
Plus, just the human factor. People are stressed, excited, maybe fatigued that can lead to hurried or inaccurate descriptions, or just fumbling with the camera. Devices often just couldn't cope with capturing rapidly moving objects or things in low light accurately.
Exactly. The technology wasn't really well equipped to handle the conditions or the potential speed and nature of the phenomena people were reporting.
And, in our modern world, the credibility of visual recordings is a whole other issue, isn't it? Evaluating authenticity is just crucial.
It absolutely is. Unfortunately, deliberate fabrications exist. Manipulated footage using CGI, editing tricks, even practical effects. You always have to scrutinize the source and the context of a recording. Who made it? When? Where? What's their history? Is there a motivation?
Your sources really highlight that the often low quality, the lack of fine detail, and sometimes the inconsistency across different recordings make rigorous analysis and validation Really complicated for the Phoenix Lights footage specifically.
Yes. A single sighting, especially if it's poorly documented or looks like it could be easily faked, isn't definitive proof on its own. It's really the accumulation of multiple well-recorded observations from different sources, preferably corroborated by other data like radar, that builds a stronger, more reliable evidence base.
Okay, so with all these reports coming in, thousands of them, what did the official channels, government, military, what did they say and do initially?
Well, the initial statements from authorities, as your sources show, were typically very cautious. The priority usually seemed to be to dispel public concern, downplay any extraordinary aspects,
Right.
and prioritize rational, conventional explanations, focusing on known objects or natural phenomena that could potentially cause the sightings.
Your material references some official investigations and reports over the years.
Yeah.
They mention older programs like Project Blue Book, which was much earlier, of course, but
Mhm.
also more recent initiatives like ATIP.
Yeah, governments have commissioned various investigations into unexplained aerial phenomena over the decades, some of them classified. Declassified documents that have been released later, as detailed in your sources, sometimes reveal that those initial public statements were perhaps intentionally vague or lacked full detail. Reports often concluded that the vast majority of sightings could be explained by conventional means, and crucially, that there was no evidence suggesting alien visitation or a threat to national security. That was the consistent line for a long time.
But the official language around this has definitely shifted in recent years, hasn't it?
Now-
It feels different now.
There's been a noticeable evolution, yes. Recent statements from authorities have become more cautious, but they also acknowledge that some cases remain unresolved and seem to defy conventional explanation. The release of those military pilot videos, for example, signals a definite change in approach.
What about the specific explanations officials propose for the Phoenix Lights themselves, beyond just general statements?
Okay, so the primary official explanation for the specific lights seen later in the evening directly over Phoenix was that they were illumination flares dropped by A-10 aircraft during a training exercise at the Barry M. Goldwater Range. This is detailed in your sources as the official military account given at the time.
Right, I remember that. But that explanation, while it might fit some aspects, doesn't seem to fully account for that initial huge V-shaped formation seen earlier in the evening, much further north, or the reports of silent, structured movement associated with that first sighting.
Exactly. That specific flare explanation primarily addresses the later seemingly stationary lights observed over the city itself, not the initial widespread V-shaped phenomenon reported hours earlier across hundreds of miles.
So what other explanations were floated officially, maybe more generally for UAP sightings?
Well, other general explanations proposed by officials over time for various UAP sightings include military or experimental aircraft theories suggesting clandestine projects, advanced prototypes, or maybe drone tests, especially near military bases.
Those atmospheric phenomena we mentioned earlier, they probably brought those up too.
Oh, yes. Explanations like ball lightning, atmospheric reflections, optical illusions caused by specific weather patterns, these are often offered as ways to fit the sightings into known natural occurrences. The aim often seems to be minimizing public concern and framing the events as understandable natural or human-induced phenomena.
Which brings us really to the heart of the public and research debate. All the various theories proposed to explain the Phoenix Lights and other UAP. Let's start with the most, well, dramatic one, the extraterrestrial hypothesis.
Right. Proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, or ETH, argue that lights like those seen in Phoenix exhibit behaviors that simply cannot be explained by natural phenomena or any known human technology. We're talking about the reported speeds, the sudden changes in direction, instantaneous acceleration, and that silent operation that seem to defy our current understanding of physics and aeronautics.
They point to what looks like deliberate, almost craft-like behaviors, structured formations, intelligent-seeming maneuvers, hovering silently, complex movements that appear to overcome gravity and inertia in ways we don't understand.
Yes, and they often emphasize the credibility of certain witnesses, particularly pilots and military personnel, whose accounts seem to corroborate these extraordinary behaviors. This lends weight, in their view, to the idea of non-human vehicles being involved.
Okay, here's a striking insight from your sources. What would be the true impact if the ET hypothesis were ever confirmed?
Yeah, if proven true, your sources suggest this isn't just another scientific discovery. It's a fundamental rewiring of human knowledge. It would likely revolutionize physics, astronomy, biology.
Wow.
It would lead to entirely new fields of research. And it would have potentially unsettling implications regarding humanity's place in the universe, planetary safety, national sovereignty, and the incredibly complex ethics of potential contact. It would fundamentally trigger massive cultural and societal shifts almost overnight.
That's a powerful way to frame it. Now, what about the military or experimental aircraft theories? We heard officials sometimes suggest this, but your sources note it faces challenges as a complete explanation.
Right. This theory posits that the sightings are attributable to highly classified government or military projects, cutting-edge aircraft testing, or covert operations far beyond public knowledge. The argument is that governments have secret technologies years or maybe decades ahead of what's publicly revealed. Area 51 type stuff, basically.
But the material points out why this doesn't fully explain all the phenomena reported. Right, particularly for Phoenix.
Correct. While it might account for some sightings, perhaps the sheer variety of reports, the unpredictable nature of some reported behaviors, the duration and scale of the Phoenix event across such a wide area, and specific details like the apparent complete lack of visible propulsion or engine noise in many accounts, make it difficult for this theory alone to be a comprehensive explanation for everything seen, especially that initial massive V-shape of the Phoenix lights.
Okay. Then there are the natural and atmospheric phenomena explanations. These seem aimed at explaining the sightings within known scientific boundaries,
Yeah.
keeping it terrestrial.
Exactly. These explanations cover a range of possibilities, like ball lightning, which is itself a rare, still not fully understood atmospheric electrical phenomenon, meteors burning up, atmospheric optics like mirages, or effects from temperature inversions where air layers bend light in weird ways.
Right.
The idea is that unusual environmental conditions can create visual effects that are mistaken for solid objects or unknown craft.
And this is where the environmental context you mentioned, weather, time of day, becomes absolutely crucial in trying to distinguish these from something genuinely unknown.
It is. Understanding the specific environmental conditions at the time of a sighting is absolutely essential for proponents of these explanations to differentiate them from, well, genuinely unexplained aerial phenomena.
On the other side of the debate, you've got the skeptical perspectives. Skeptics tend to attribute these sightings to more mundane terrestrial causes generally.
Yeah, their argument usually is that most sightings are simply misidentifications of ordinary objects. Bright stars like Sirius, planets like Venus, satellites, conventional aircraft may be seen under unusual lighting, whether balloons or optical illusions. They also point to the possibility of hoaxes, psychological factors, or misinformation spreading. A key tenet of skepticism in this field is the emphasis on the lack of concrete, undeniable physical evidence, and the principle that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof.
And how do proponents of the unexplained or the researchers respond to that skepticism, according to your sources?
Well, rebuttals often highlight that skeptics can sometimes dismiss consistent reports from multiple credible witnesses, perhaps without a rigorous analysis of those specific accounts. They might argue that the standard of evidence demanded by some skeptics for fleeting aerial phenomena is sometimes practically impossible to achieve, effectively creating a standard that perhaps no UAP sighting could ever meet. It's a difficult balance.
And of course, where there's mystery and official ambiguity, conspiracy theories tend to flourish. That's a big part of this whole field.
Oh, definitely. This is a significant thread in ufology. The belief that governments are actively hiding knowledge of extraterrestrial encounters or perhaps advanced technology recovered or reverse engineered, that's prevalent.
Right. This includes claims of suppressed evidence, referencing historical examples like Project Blue Book, alleged recoveries like the famous one at Roswell, secret bases such as Area 51, and purported whistleblowers who claim to have insider knowledge.
What motivations are typically attributed to governments in these cover-up theories? Why would they hide it?
Your sources mention several potential motivations. Fear of causing public panic is a big one. Protecting established industries like energy or aerospace, that might be disrupted by revolutionary technology. Or maybe maintaining technological superiority if they possess or have reverse-engineered advanced alien technology themselves.
This all just fuels these ongoing debates among researchers, investigators, and skeptics within the field itself.
Absolutely. The disagreements often stem from fundamental differences in perspective. Whether one defaults to natural explanations or is more open to considering technological or even non-human origins. There are also varying standards for what counts as acceptable evidence and just difficulty in even defining what constitutes proof in this field. Your sources also point out challenges within the UFO research community itself, different goals among various groups. a historical lack of standardized protocols for investigation and data collection,
Yeah.
and internal disagreements that can sometimes hinder unified progress towards any kind of consensus.
Acknowledging and trying to bridge these different perspectives while maintaining a strictly rigorous approach to data and evidence is presented in your material as pretty crucial for any potential breakthroughs in understanding these phenomena. It requires a sort of big tent approach, but with standards.
Stepping back a bit, what kind of impact did the Phoenix Lights specifically have on the broader landscape of UFO research and public perception? Was it a game changer?
I think it really was a pivotal moment, particularly in the modern era of UAP study. It dramatically rekindled widespread public interest in research efforts. Before Phoenix, maybe it was easier for mass sightings to be dismissed as mass hallucination or simple misidentification by officials or skeptics. But seeing thousands of credible witnesses report something so similar, so openly, across such a wide area, it fundamentally challenged that perception.
It wasn't just dismissed as a few eccentric individuals seeing things in the backwoods somewhere.
Exactly. It prompted, over time, more systematic investigation methods, spurred efforts for better data collection, and definitely put pressure on authorities for greater transparency eventually. Organizations like MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and local groups like the Arizona Project mentioned in your sources gained significant momentum following the event, focusing on trying to do rigorous investigation and data gathering.
And it seems like it even started to shift perceptions, maybe cautiously, within some scientific circles, too.
Yes, I think the sheer scale and consistency of the Phoenix sightings encouraged some scientific institutions to begin taking the subject, well, a bit more seriously. Exploring ways to apply scientific methods and analysis to the data collected, moving beyond solely anecdotal evidence, which had been the norm for so long.
How does the Phoenix Lights case stack up against other famous historical UAP cases, like, say, Roswell or the Belgium Wave? Are there key differences?
Your sources highlight Phoenix's uniqueness pretty well. It was characterized by this massive, silent V-shaped or triangular formation seen openly by thousands simultaneously across a vast area. Crucially, it was primarily characterized by lights with no associated wreckage claims, unlike Roswell.
Right. Roswell's all about the alleged crash and recovery.
Exactly. It contrasts with Roswell's historical secrecy and claims of debris and bodies. And it's also different from the Belgium wave, which had a stronger, though still somewhat debated, link to radar tracking and military intercept attempts.
So Phoenix really stands out for its sheer scale of observation, its public visibility, the consistency of the reported visual form, that V shape or triangle, and the distinct lack of any physical remnants reported.
Precisely. Though they're all distinct, these big cases collectively highlight patterns that researchers look for: mass sightings, reports of structured formations, unusual performance characteristics, and sometimes these ambiguous military interactions which continue to inform ongoing UAP investigation.
Thinking about the broader cultural impact, the Phoenix Lights seem to have left a really lasting mark, especially in Arizona.
Oh, they absolutely have. The event is deeply woven into Phoenix's cultural identity now. It's a part of the collective memory of the region, and it continues to fuel local interest, even contributing to a form of, well, dark tourism, I suppose.
Yeah, I've heard there are memorials and events that keep the conversation alive.
Yes, they serve to commemorate the sighting and maybe to some extent normalize the subject of UAP discussion in the area. And the event has also been widely represented in popular culture. You see it in movies, TV shows, documentaries, embedding it firmly into the modern UFO mythos.
And those popular culture portrayals often lean into the more dramatic narratives, don't they? Like cover-ups or direct ET connections, shaping public perception along the way.
That's a key point from your sources, yes. Popular media portrayals often shape how the public understands the event, sometimes perpetuating specific theories or narratives, not always accurately. It certainly underscores the need for critical viewing skills when consuming media about UAP.
Okay, looking forward then. There have been significant recent developments and a renewed, even official interest in UAP investigation. This feels like a different era.
This is a major recent shift discussed in your material, absolutely. A key driver has been the U.S. government's release of previously classified documents and acknowledgement of new evidence. Agencies have been releasing memos, reports, and importantly, those verified military pilot videos related to UAP encounters.
Your sources mention a consistency of details across some of these documents, maybe hinting at patterns beyond just isolated incidents.
Yes. There are examples like radar anomalies that seem to corroborate visual descriptions of objects performing maneuvers that appear impossible for known technology. Now, the process of analyzing these documents requires meticulous work, as they are often coded or heavily redacted.
Yeah.
But this move towards transparency, even if it's limited, prompts significant questions about past secrecy and denials.
And recent government disclosures and statements just feel different, don't they? They're not just dismissing everything out of hand anymore.
There's a very notable shift, yes, from outright denial or easy dismissal to a much more cautious acknowledgement. Authorities now openly state that some cases remain unresolved and that certain phenomena observed defy conventional explanation. There's official recognition that UAP merits serious attention, including assessment of potential national security implications.
While being careful not to jump to conclusions about what they are, about their origin.
Precisely. While the phenomena have been confirmed as real and observed by credible sources like military pilots, they have not been officially attributed to extraterrestrial origins. The emphasis now is on interagency cooperation and developing a systematic process for assessing and understanding these events. The term UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, or sometimes anomalous phenomena, is now the official designation used by government and military.
It sounds like the research initiatives themselves are also evolving significantly, moving beyond just collecting historical anecdotes.
Absolutely. There's a surge in more rigorous scientific projects employing cutting-edge technology. This includes things like high-resolution imaging systems, spectral analysis, which means examining the light emitted or reflected by an object to try and determine its composition or properties.
Okay.
Machine learning algorithms to analyze vast data sets for patterns, and advanced radar systems.
And using new tools like maybe drone networks or autonomous technology for continuous monitoring, not just reacting after someone reports a sighting.
Exactly. The shift is towards more methodical, rigorous, and interdisciplinary approaches, bringing in physicists, engineers, data scientists. The importance of international collaborations and open source or citizen science initiatives using crowdsourcing and online platforms for data collection and analysis is also growing.
All aimed at moving beyond the limitations of past investigation by getting higher quality, more objective data, presumably.
That's the goal, yes. To shift from relying so heavily on anecdotal reports, which are valuable but limited, to systematic observation and scientific analysis using the best available tools.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Phoenix Lights, based on all this material, it's clear the enigma really endures, doesn't it?
It really does. Despite all the investigations, countless theories debated for decades now, and even some recent moves towards official acknowledgement of UAP in general, the true nature of those lights witnessed by thousands in 1997 remains, officially at least, unresolved. It's a mystery fueled by conflicting evidence, official ambiguity, and those incredibly persistent, powerful witness accounts.
Yeah. Events like the Phoenix Lights really challenge our understanding of what's possible in our skies and highlight how much about the physical world we still simply don't know. Looking at the material you provided is just a powerful reminder of the importance of maintaining curiosity, open-mindedness, but also rigorous inquiry when faced with the unexplained.
It compels us to scrutinize both the reported evidence and the explanations offered, whether they're official or come from independent researchers or skeptics.
So based on everything we've discussed from your sources today, here's maybe a final provocative thought for you to consider. What does the continued mystery of the Phoenix Lights, even decades later, with all our technological advancements, increased official transparency, sophisticated analytical tools, what does it really tell us about the limits of our current knowledge? Or, perhaps, even about the fundamental nature of reality itself?